Hey there, it's Mallory here with All About Cats, and in this week's video we're going to be doing another in-depth cat food brand review. This time we're going to be taking a closer look at the brand Purina ONE. So, as you probably have realized, Purina is a huge company. They go back all the way to 1894. They've been in the pet food industry for over 80 years, and they own a wide variety of brands positioned at various points on the pet food price spectrum. When I was doing research on this particular brand, I found myself making a lot of comparisons to Beyond and Pro Plan. The differences between these three brands are very subtle and varied, and ultimately, they're going to be best evaluated on a product-by-product basis. Generally speaking, Purina ONE is marketed as a natural brand. When it came out in 1986, it was supposedly one of the first super premium foods. And generally, they're emphasizing this idea that the food is made from high-quality ingredients that can theoretically lead to better health. That being said, I found that compared to Purina Beyond, you're seeing more controversial ingredients like corn gluten meal, and compared to Purina Pro Plan, you're certainly seeing fewer condition-specific foods and less of an emphasis on that idea of veterinary formulations, and you're also seeing somewhat fewer artificial ingredients. So their lineup includes both dry and wet foods. These are going to all come in grain-inclusive and grain-free varieties. There are a wide variety of recipes available. In the canned lineup, you're going to see a wide variety of textures and protein sources. The same applies to their dry lineup, and you're also going to see formulations for certain life stages like kittens and seniors, as well as some recipes oriented towards certain issues like urinary tract health and cats who have some form of sensitive digestion. So there's really quite a broad variety to look at. Purina ONE foods are kind of moderately priced. From what I could tell, their dry foods are typically going to cost about 16 to 30 cents per day if you're feeding a typical 10-pound cat. And from what I could tell, their wet foods typically are going to cost somewhere around $2 per day, regardless of if you're choosing their original foods or their True Instinct line. This makes these foods about twice as expensive as Fancy Feast. So they're definitely not the most affordable foods, but they are also not nearly as expensive as things like Hound and Gato's, Tiki Cat, or Weruva. We'll be looking more closely at a couple of recipes later on, but before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about how these foods are made. So like most Purina brands, Purina ONE foods sold in the US are generally made in the United States in Purina-owned facilities. So the company says that most of Purina ONE's ingredients are sourced from North America, but they don't make any promises, so it seems that they are sourcing globally. Again, Purina has been in the business for quite some time, and they've established a pretty good reputation for quality and consistency. Purina ONE, however, has been involved in a few recalls. In 2011, they voluntarily recalled one variety of Purina ONE food due to potential for salmonella contamination. And then in 2013, their dog food was recalled, also due to salmonella. In addition to these recalls specific to Purina ONE, other Purina brands have been recalled multiple times in the company's history. If you're interested in learning more about Purina's recall history, check out the description. I'll put a link there to a petful summary of all of the recalls that they have on record. And now that we've gotten some background on Purina ONE, I want to zoom in and take a closer look at a couple of their recipes. So I went out and purchased a few formulas, and I want to take a closer look at one dry food and one wet food. So let's start off with a dry recipe. Let's look at Purina ONE's Tender Selects with Real Chicken dry food recipe. The first thing that I'm noticing when I look at this food is that it is labeled with real chicken. Generally, when a food is labeled with real chicken, with salmon, with beef, and so on, this isn't an accident. These phrases are generally chosen in order to comply with FDA regulations on how pet foods can be labeled, and generally it suggests that there is not all that much of the labeled ingredient in the food. So this is suggesting that there is not all that much real chicken in this recipe. While we do see that chicken is the first ingredient, we also see that it's followed by a number of other very dense ingredients that are probably contributing a lot more to the overall nutrient content of the food than is that moisture-rich chicken at the beginning of the ingredient list. So overall, it definitely looks like this is a plant-based dry food. So overall, I can't say there's much about this food that stands out from other kibble products. It's clearly a plant-based recipe. So according to the guaranteed analysis, it looks like this food is about 41% carbohydrates on a dry matter basis. Protein makes up roughly 43% of the recipe, and then fat is 16% of it. So overall, we're looking at a relatively high protein, low fat, and high carbohydrate food. Again, nothing particularly exciting here. The food costs about 8 cents per ounce, adding up to roughly 16 cents per day if you're feeding a typical 10-pound cat. So while I'm not all that impressed with this particular dry recipe, I found their wet food to be pretty interesting. So I'm going to be looking at their chicken recipe, which again, we can see here that it's labeled chicken recipe. According to FDA labeling regulations, this type of qualifying term, like recipe, must be applied when a food is somewhere between 25 and 95% composed of that ingredient. We can assume that this food is somewhere between 25% and 95% chicken on a dry matter basis. A look at the ingredient list shows that chicken is indeed the first ingredient in this recipe. Then it contains some kind of vaguely named ingredients like liver and fish. It also contains pork lung, and then it contains a variety of synthetic vitamins, minerals, and amino acids, which make the food nutritionally complete. It also contains guar gum as a thickener, but overall this is a really straightforward, simple, meat-based food. While some would say that those vaguely labeled ingredients leave too many questions about the ingredient quality, it does overall seem to be a good species-appropriate option for your cat. When I look at the guaranteed analysis and convert it to dry matter values, it seems that the food is about 63% protein, 29% fat, and 8% carbohydrates, and this type of macronutrient distribution is typically what I would be looking for in a cat food. Now, this food costs about 30 cents per ounce, and if you're feeding a typical 10-pound cat, that's going to add up to about $2.10 per day. So overall, is Purina ONE a good choice? I think Purina ONE has some really good recipes. Their original line of canned food seems to be quite good. You can find a lot of nice species-appropriate options at a reasonable price. Again, not the cheapest, but a bit more economical than some other foods with similar macronutrient distributions and a similar emphasis on meat. Their dry foods aren't so impressive. They're kind of on par with other dry foods on the market. I can't really say that I'm seeing anything too exciting there. When deciding if you want to opt for the True Instinct line, I would say it's really not worth it. I'm not really seeing anything here that's particularly different from the competition. So to sum things up, according to the All About Cats standard, I would give them a 7 out of 10 in terms of species appropriateness, a 7 out of 10 in terms of ingredient quality. They'll get an 8 out of 10 in terms of product variety, an 8 out of 10 in terms of price, as well as customer experience. And finally, I'll give them a 4 out of 10 for their recall history, since this brand has been recalled a few times. So all in all, I'll give them a 42 out of 60 rating, or a B grade. So that's about it. I hope that this video helped you to get a better understanding of Purina ONE, how it's different from other similar Purina brands, and whether or not it might be a good choice for you. If you'd like to learn more about Purina ONE, you can read our in-depth written review. I'll put a link in the description as well as in the cards. And in the description, you'll also find links to all of the products mentioned here. Now, if you're interested in more cat food brand reviews like this one, as well as reviews of other products, buyer's guides, and information on all things cats, please subscribe to the All About Cats channel and hit the notification bell so you get the news every time we release a new video. We upload videos at least once a week, so there's always something to look forward to. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you next week. Bye.